Welcome to another episode of This Week in Social Media, a show you cannot unfollow no matter how hard you try. We've got a full table here. Let's do a little roundabout and see who's here. One, at Mike Bracco, at Judalina, am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. And at Born Ryan as well, also known as Ryan Bourne. Not related to Jason Bourne.
Not related.
Okay.
I have a stepbrother named Jason Bourne.
Really?
I do.
Interesting.
Cool.
We'll learn all about that later. Ryan's coming from a company called Audioo. You may think it's Audio, which I've been saying for the last few weeks. It's actually Audioo. We're learning about his company, what they're doing, and we have some funny clips to play as well. Before we get started, we want to thank our sponsor, and our sponsor is PicClick. PicClick is a visual shopping search engine. You can see it there on the screen. Really what you can do is you can go through eBay, Amazon, Etsy, Plenty of Fish, which is a dating site, Yelp as well. You can find all kinds of different things, and you can browse visually by thumbnail, which is a little nicer when you're looking for good stuff to buy. Let's take a look. What do you want to look at? Collectibles?
So you look at some collectibles here. So let me pull up here, and you can see the categories down here. So here's collectibles. So if you click on that, it gives you a bunch of subcategories. And
show me something weird.
Something weird.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What is weird? Bottles and insulators. What? Some
old bottles. There's a market for that, apparently.
That's a flask, isn't it?
There's a flask.
Yeah.
There's some old bottles. There's some, I believe, what you would call a canter.
Everybody needs to own a flask.
Yes.
But it's really great because you can visually spin through here pretty quickly. Just connects to all these services. A very visual way to shop, which is nice.
Yeah, and if you're in the chat room, please do us a favor and thank our sponsors. Because of them, they can pay our insane salaries, craft services. We got a limo for Ryan. Did you come in on the jet today? We need a lot of sponsorship money, and we really appreciate that. We also did a little contest with PicClick last week where we asked you to find the weirdest object you could find. We got a bunch of entries. The last one that came in I really like, though, and essentially, if we can pull that up here, it's a tiny sumo, and this is so classic of Etsy. As far as I can tell, it's just a wood block that someone painted nipples on. It's the tiniest wood sumo wrestler ever. And actually, this is from Ben Lopez, who I believe is in the chat room. And we got his name up there as well. Ben, I see you in the chat room trolling a little bit. And so, Ben, if you want to email into us, and you could email into, why don't you email into Roberta at This Weekend. Give us your address. I will buy you that sumo wrestler and mail it to you. And we thank you for your support. This week we want to try and do a new scavenger hunt. I think what we want to do is, I'm about to have my first kid. And so I'm very excited and, of course, scared to death. I want to see if you can find me the geekiest or most interesting baby-related item on there. You can find it on Etsy, because that's going to be your best hope of finding something strange and odd. But if you see it on eBay or somewhere else, that's fine, too. Find me the strangest baby item, and I will buy it for myself and cherish it. And we will name my firstborn after you, I guess. That seems fair, right? And so once again, we want to thank PicClick. That's picclick.com. You can also follow them on Twitter. Please, everyone, do a tweet out for them and say thank you at PicClick for sponsoring This Week in Social Media. Let's get right into it. We have a story that came in from a viewer of ours. His name is Jason Prosnitz. I'm so bad with names, Jason. I'm sorry if that's not how you spell it. There we go. We have his name up there. J. Pros, which is pretty cool. And he sent us in a story about a lawsuit on LinkedIn, and if we can pull that up, we'll take a look at it. Now, the lawsuit's really confusing. The best that I can tell is that this person left a company, and a lot of times you have what they call like a non-compete. Have any of you guys signed a non-compete? Are you familiar with
have.
that? You've signed one?
Yeah, because I do a lot of freelance work for different brands, and so I've been in similar positions to this before.
What are your thoughts on a non-compete? Because I think that's kind of stupid.
I think that it's kind of silly, but at the same time, like I do a lot of freelance promotional modeling for brands, and so the clients that I work for, they make their money by connecting the models, namely me, with the brands. And so if I build a direct relationship with the brand, I can cut them out entirely, and then they have no business, essentially. So in that circumstance, I kind of understand. This one was a little bit weird, though, because the extent to which they're pursuing it is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of strange to me is that it looks almost like the lawsuit is because the person contacted and made a connection, meaning they just friend requested or whatever the terminology is on LinkedIn. I'm wondering if they just also look for recommendations, which is pretty common when you leave a job. It's like, hey, recommend me. I mean, you should probably be sued for just doing those because they're so annoying, and like you have to really sit and try and form this like nice thing to say about someone who like you had lukewarm feelings about. But I think what happened here is like they reached out, and it wasn't specific if they like, you know,
We're
hey,
pursuing
how are you?
business,
Come work for me. Yeah, it was more like a casual friendship that was being formed. And so they're saying that that is a violation of their non-compete clause, and they apparently are going to sue them. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll try and track the story and see. I remember I signed a non-compete at a few companies ago, and it was funny because I'm looking at it and it's like, you cannot, you know, compete in online marketing and da-da-da-da. And I was like, wait a minute, my life is online marketing. And my thought is, you know what, sign it and then don't worry about it, make them sue you. I really don't feel it's enforceable in California.
That's
Do you have experience?
From what I know, they're unenforceable in California. That's not legal advice, but if they're that broad, I can't imagine that they would hinder your potential to make income in the future. So
it was literally like, you cannot be involved in like online marketing, online advertisements, these kind of things. I'm like, oh, well, that's every company out there. Yeah, if you get a non-compete, sign it, and then laugh and continue on your merry way. That is legal advice. Please don't follow it. Now, this is a great story. This is Julie. You came up with the story, right, from OkCupid?
I read about this on Twitter yesterday, and I jokingly tweeted it at Sean.
You did,
and didn't honestly think that it was going to get covered, but it's amusing.
You know, it's fascinating, and I'm always interested. Being married, like, I have no idea what the dating life is like anymore. And, you know, back in my day, and I want to sound very old, is I used MySpace to meet girls, and it was great, and it was easy, and it was like shooting fish in a barrel to a certain extent. You know, that was a great legacy that MySpace has. Now, of course, you have OkCupid, Plenty of Fish, all these other things that are popping up. You're the only girl here, so we're going to really ask you some tough questions, because I want to know, because I have no idea. Are you single, is the first question.
I'm single.
Do you use OkCupid and these type of sites?
I am registered with OkCupid, and a few other dating sites, though I haven't found them to be that useful. I actually did get a date off Craigslist once, but since that's not social media, I won't bring that up. And it went really well, and we're still friends, and we've kept in touch, so it can work out. The thing about OkCupid, though, is it's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek dating site because it's so driven by these quizzes, and they build your profile by you taking these silly, like, if you were a Smurf, what Smurf would you be quiz? And then that reflects back on how daring you are, and they literally have measures like, you're 47% adventurous, versus 65% adventurous. And that's how they construct their profiles. So the fact that they sent out this email to these people saying, hey, highest hotted rated people, you are now going to have access to the hottest people on OkCupid is really in keeping with their brand.
It's a little strange, and I mean, let's read the email so everyone's caught up here. I mean, it's a story on Consumerist, which is a great blog, and it says, the email starts off saying, we are very pleased to report that you're in the top half of OkCupid's most attractive users. The scales recently tipped in your favor. We thought you'd like to know. And then it kind of goes on to say that you will have access to hot people now. So did you... I guess what I'm confused is, were you not able to see the hot people before?
I think that you had to. It's sort of like chatroulette in a lot of ways, where you had to keep clicking through the not hots in order to get to the hots. But now you don't have to click through, I guess, if you're one of these top half OkCupid users, which turns out I'm not. I haven't been nominated in the top half.
How do they determine the hotness level?
That's what I find questionable. And I will say, before this article got posted about 5 days ago, I ran into a friend at a social media mixer, and he was like, I just got nominated into the top half of hot users. And I was like, how? And let me know so I can do that too.
Yeah. Well, I've read the YouTube comments on videos you're done, and you're definitely hot, and the world thinks so. So I think it's happening. You're in the backlog somewhere.
Right.
Can we backtrack, though? You had a date on Craigslist, and you didn't get stabbed or chopped into bits?
No, it's shocking.
Was this in Casual Encounters, or was this dating?
This was in Men Seeking Women. There was a whole drunken backstory that involved visiting a friend in San Diego, and she had been dating exclusively off Craigslist and had been finding a ton of very, very good-looking guys. And I was like, wow, good-looking guys are prowling Craigslist at 3 in the morning. That's clearly where I need to be. So in a drunken stupor, I was like, find me a guy on Craigslist, and they did. And they found this, and it was by far the most intelligently written ad I'd ever scene.
Yeah.
And he's now in the Warner Brothers television writing program. So freakishly intelligent guy.
Wow.
Yeah, Craigslist.
Why didn't it work out?
There was another woman
Oh.
for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what you get on Craigslist.
Exactly.
I think. That's like that's
and
what
Match
I hear.
and most of these dating sites, because you're not just responding to one profile, you're putting it out there and you're
Sure.
shooting your fish.
It's it's at the shotgun. Yeah. Go ahead.
I briefly have to chime in and just say, when we get to Audioo, I'd be happy to tell you a Craigslist dating story. And just, ladies, do not do it.
Yeah.
You heard one side of the story. I'll tell you the other one.
I think we have one of those voicemails to go over. Well, that's fascinating. I'm interested to always hear these kind of stories. And that's a good segue. Let's talk to Ryan. We have Ryan here. Give me your background, Ryan. So I like people to introduce themselves because, one, I like to put people on the spot and I like to see what they say about themselves. So tell us about your background and tell us about Audioo and kind of how you got to that point.
Okay. In short, I'm actually a CPA. I started my career as an accountant. I used to go into large companies and audit them. I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one of the largest audit firms in the country. I got recruited. I was an art history major, and it was in a bad economy. I didn't know how I was going to get a job, and I was walking to class one day, and the guy said, "I heard they're throwing jobs at accountants." And I was like, "Okay, I'll be an accountant." So I went to a job fair, and I started saying, "I'm an accountant," and all of a sudden they said, "You want an internship?" And it pays. It pays a lot of money. I was like, "Okay." So the next thing I know, I became an accounting major, became an accountant. I guess I did it because I was math oriented, but I was a little worried about where my career was going to go. So in short, I moved my way up the accounting ranks, did my CPA, went to graduate school, got a master's degree, worked at Pricewaterhouse, took a job, wanted to get out of that field, and I took a job with a company called Wire Image, which
it's like Getty Images, right?
It is. Yeah. They were ultimately acquired by Getty Images.
Okay. Yeah.
Wire Image was looking for an accountant. They were a VC-backed business. They're the world's largest celebrity photo distributor.
Yep.
I ultimately became their financial controller and their vice president of finance. The company grew very, very rapidly and got acquired by Getty Images for $208 million in 2007. So back in knowing that space of licensing, celebrity photo licensing, I became obsessed with it. Licensing is a great business. I mean, people send you money, you don't hold inventory, then you pay out a royalty to the artist and you keep the spread.
Yeah, it's virtual goods to a certain extent. Yeah.
Yeah. And as an accountant, it was really easy to keep the books for because there's no inventory to account for, a lot of end of year procedures are a lot simpler. So I was hooked on it. So anyway, microstock was emerging. Microstock photography was emerging at the time. iStock photo was, this is back in 2005. I saw it coming and I said, this is the future of photography, crowdsourcing content and licensing it for a low price point. Decided that where could I take that model and apply it that it hadn't been applied, meaning the crowdsourced, low-priced microstock licensing model. If it's already done in photography, I don't want to open one of these, where can I do it? So I looked at different types of content, video, fonts, vectors, you name it, and I landed on music. So was anybody doing microstock music? No one was doing it. I jumped in, took a risk.
Can you explain microstock just in case some of our viewers don't know what that means?
Sure. Microstock is a concept of licensing. There's traditional rights-managed licensing where you negotiate price. There's royalty-free licensing where there's a flat fee per piece of content. And then there's microstock, which is a subset of royalty-free. It has three defining characteristics. It's done by the internet, it's crowdsourced, and it has prices as little as $1, hence microtransactions. So I jumped into microstock music. I started a company called Audioo Micro. Put some of my own money into it. Was working out of my apartment, just really getting it going, and ultimately was able to get it off the ground and get a round of financing from DFJ Frontier. They're a seed and early stage VC firm here in Los Angeles.
Can we stop there? And did you have equity in Wire Image when they sold?
I did.
You got to pay out there?
I did. I actually, not only was I a common shareholder through an option grant, but I actually personally invested in their Series C.
Oh, wow.
The company was growing really rapidly, and they were looking to fill out some, so I pumped some of my savings into it, and I made a return.
Great.
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of started the other Audioo Micro, with that money and maybe some other savings as well.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yep. I figured this awesome event has happened to me. I ought to take some of the gains and risk them on a new endeavor.
Sure.
This is fun. This works, and let me do it.
Did you spend all the money? Did you go all in?
No.
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 Save
And I
some of it.
will, just to be clear, I put a down payment on a house, and the rest went into Audioo Micro.
You obviously a former accountant and smart with your money. I would have gone like rolled the dice, bought a Ferrari, and I don't know, a house somewhere in
Honda.
Yeah. You drive a Honda still?
I do.
Even after an exit? Okay. Well,
Yes,
no.
and I'm a big Honda fan. Yeah.
Okay. So now I feel really bad because I just am horrible with my money. Everyone needs 2 Audis. Come on. Let's talk about a really important point here.
Yeah.
You are splitting image of Ryan Block.
All right. Yeah.
Do you ever get this? You must get this.
I've gotten it before. The first time I got it was from you.
Okay, so let's give some background. Ryan Block is the he wasn't the founding editor of Engadget, but he was the former editor there. Well, okay, we have an image on the screen now. I mean, take a look at these 2 photos. These 2 guys, you guys are long lost brothers, right? I can't believe I brought this up like a long, long time ago. I mean, look at that there. It's a little shocking. I think everyone knows Ryan Block. You can look him up on Twitter as well. So I was the first one to bring this up. That was a while ago. No one's brought it up since?
It's been brought up since,
Okay,
absolutely. I've been actually approached as like, hey, like, what's going on? And they're like, I thought you were Ryan Block. And I'm like, no, I'm Ryan Bourne. But I've heard of Ryan, and he's a good writer. But I don't personally know him. Other than
Have you met him?
No, other than when you told me I looked like him and that
Yeah.
he was a tech writer, I figured when I had my next press release, I ought to contact him. thinking that he would be like, yeah, I'll post about this guy. He's
my
cool.
evil twin. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
he looks like him. And he wrote back and he was like, where did you get my email from? This is nowhere remotely in my area of interest. And I went with the sorry, Sean, my friend Sean gave me your email.
Oh,
or
boy.
told me who you were. And
Good.
I guessed his email was like ryan@ryanblock.com. It's
Sure.
like not very difficult to find someone's email. Anyway, we're still
That's
buddies,
funny.
Ryan. Don't sweat it.
Okay. Apparently, Ryan and I are no longer friends because I give out his email and tell people to contact him. I know what the issue is that when you get to his stature, like, you get so many people soliciting you, and so it just drives him crazy. And I think the reason he said that is now he's into gadgets. He has his new site, Gadget, which is jdgt.com.
GDGT.
Yeah, GD, sorry. And so I think that when you approached him, he was like, what is this? Another PR guy, another idiot with a startup. Get him out of here. So anyway, all right, well, I don't think I'll be invited to his Christmas party next year, but
I don't think
that's
he
okay.
I don't think he minded at all.
That's good. Well, so you gave us some of the background talking about how you went to start at Audio Micro, and I mean, how's that doing? How's that business doing? And we'll talk about Audioo in a second.
It's doing really well. In short, it's a chicken before the egg thing. So we spent the first year aggregating content so that we could then bring customers in. And now we started to really crank on the customer engine. You'll see our traffic growth over the last 3 months has been phenomenal.
What are you guys doing per month for UV right now?
We do over 200,000 monthly unique visitors.
That's good.
Yeah, and that's all organic traffic. I don't pay for traffic at all.
Okay.
And I just convert a percentage of those into paying customers, and I pay 50% of that money back out to my artists.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so you were tracking Audioo, and you thought maybe this was a good match. I know it's our mutual friend Ben Padros who you got it from, and he had kind of been working on it for a few years, never really took off, and you kind of took it under your wing. Is that how this went down?
Yeah, I met Ben when I first moved. I just moved to Los Angeles about 3 years ago, and that was right when I started Audio Micro. And I met Ben early on in the process as just another entrepreneur I should know.
Yeah.
So we became friends, and he kind of said, I've got this Audioo website. It's supposed to be a YouTube for audio. I pumped some decent money into the technology. I have a good team. It's not really going anywhere. He had a lot. Ben has a lot of things he does. He's a big domainer. He's active in the affiliate marketing space. So this was just kind of like a fun project. Audioo was. So anyway, I saw that opportunity, and after Audio Micro continued to grow, and we could really make a horizontal move into another area, I said, why don't we take over Audioo and relaunch it as a destination for public sharing of voicemail? The idea behind that was simply, I started using Ribbit, Google Voice, Phone Tag, a lot of these voice-to-text transcription services for your voicemail, and I was like, this is hilarious. I'm getting emails, I'm getting text messages of these messages. Sometimes those are funny in and of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Now I've got an MP3 of what this person left on my phone. Why is there not a destination I can publish this? Well, there's Ben. He's got this perfect destination for it. He's got a cute domain name, Audioo. Let's do it. So Audio Micro acquired his company from him, and we relaunched it at TechCrunch Disrupt. We were able to get into TechCrunch Disrupt. Audioo version 1 was basically kind of we put a parking page up. We reused as much of the code, which was the encoding engine, the back-end administrative system, but the entire front end is new. And here we are today. It's kind of amazing. I mean, we just launched 3-4 weeks ago, and we're getting a lot of attention. We've got a pretty controversial topic, so kind of we can go into that. But it's
the people, when I explain it, I kind of say it's like a blippy for voicemail, right? Where it's it's not automated. Where in the sense of every time a voicemail comes in my system, it goes to you guys, but
not yet.
Okay. Do you get that comparison a lot? You're working on that.
We're working on that.
Okay.
I actually started with that analogy, which was I like to make things simple. So Audio Micro is iStock photo for music. Audioo is blippy for voicemail. It's pretty simple, pretty easy to. Michael Arrington said it's super self-obvious what that means. I agree. However,
as long as you know what blippy is.
As long as you know what blippy is, and a lot of people don't, but in the tech community, you should. So. What ended up happening, though, was Philip Kaplan, CEO of Blippy, was a judge at TechCrunch Disrupt. And he didn't get it at first on stage.
Okay.
And so I was like, if he doesn't get the Blippy for voicemail analogy, then we've got to change. So what I've now been pitching is it's text from last night for voicemail.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Which is also super self-obvious. But instead of being what it was intended to be was an auto stream of your voicemails, now it's more just share your most ridiculous voicemails.
Things like drunk dialing, and let's listen to some actually. Mike, I think you have some queued up there. Let's start. We have one with a ferret. If we can listen to that one first. So this is an example of what we're talking about here. Essentially, this is a voicemail that was shared in some way or another. I believe this is a guy calling UPS about his ferret.
Yeah.
Okay. Fire away.
Hey, yo, this Harold, and I need to know when you're gonna come get these boxes. Because the longer these boxes sit here, I'm not sure because I'm just working for the UPS, but I think there's a ferret in there, and I only say ferret as opposed to a dog or a cat because I had a ferret once, and the kind of noise this motherfucker making from these boxes, I'm pretty goddamn sure it's a ferret. And I don't really cuss unless I'm serious about something. So I think it's a fucking ferret. So, I mean, y'all can deal with it the way y'all want, but if you don't come get these boxes, this little dude gonna starve. Out.
All right, that's great. I can see by the chat room that everyone heard that okay. I can actually hear outside in the building here in the studio people laughing as well. So that's a great example. Where did that one come from? Do you know the backstory on that one? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, I don't.
Okay, just kind of came in the system.
It came in through a general uploader, and it's turned into like a meme in and of itself. It's I don't cuss unless I'm serious, so I think it's an effing ferret. Like the lines are just unbelievable from this guy. But I mean, it's gotten like 10,000 plays already through today. I mean, it's really becoming like a hit in and of itself. So.
It's funny. We have one more, and this is what I think this service is great for. And this is a problem Judalina has, I believe, where guys, if they haven't returned your phone, guys, if they haven't returned your phone call after the 4th or 10th time that you've called, probably not going to call you back. You should give up. This is an example of a guy, I know this is from a series of voicemails because I recognize the voice, and this guy essentially called this woman at least 5 or 10 times, every time getting worse and worse, to the point where he said she's not a decent human being. Let's listen to that one as well.
Hi, Ashley. This is David. It's 9 o'clock. I don't think you can be that busy not to return my phone call. Can you just call me for 5 minutes? Let me know if you're available to go out, or I should stop calling you and just forget about you. I thought you were a decent human being, but it seems to me you are not. So I don't know what to tell you. I thought you are someone I can talk and you are somebody decent. So can you just call me for 5 minutes if you are not available? So I can just throw your number to the garbage.
That's great.
That sign out was intense.
She's definitely going to call back after that.
Can you just call me and let me know you're not interested so I can throw your number away?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, you've gotten voicemails like this.
Unfortunately, I've gotten a lot of voicemails like this.
Anything that bad? I mean, this is why you don't give your number to guys on the Santa Monica Promenade.
It's honest, sad but true. I've gotten some bad ones like that. But That's what the same context as last night's text is. People do things when it's late that they shouldn't, that need to go on the internet.
Yeah.
So thank
That's
you.
right. They should be
Thank you
outed.
for giving us-
That behavior is just unacceptable.
It is. I wonder if that guy will ever know that thousands and thousands of people have listened to his voicemail.
Probably doesn't have a computer.
Probably not. But, well, I mean, the big question on all this that I really wonder about, and I think maybe you've talked about this before, is it legal?
Yeah.
Because now, there was a moment I was at South by Southwest, and if you've been to South by Southwest, you know that there is a lot of drinking going on. There's a lot of open bars. We were drinking perhaps a little too much, and I came home and I said, you know what? I'm going to look on Foursquare, and I bet I can tell you where everyone's staying, because everyone's checking into their hotel, and I'm just going to call those hotels and start prank calling people. And I did this to about 5 people, and I did it to Gary Vee, actually. And he was really cool about it, and I did a prank call with him. I said my name was Tom Crush, and you're ruining my life, and please stop telling people to crush it, and someone came up to me and actually crushed me. Like, he was really cool about it. It's a funny voicemail. We can play it if you want to cue it up. I should put it on there. But it's not really voicemail, but because that's a call. But I was, drinking heavily. I went to my hotel room, somehow worked it up into a blog post, and I posted it. And then I woke up the next morning, and my first thought was, wait a minute, is that even legal? Because I didn't have his permission. I just posted it. Tell us, how does this work?
Yeah. So you were talking about recording of a telephone call.
Yeah.
Which we can get into. Let's get into voicemail first.
Okay.
Let's talk about Audioo. So with voicemail, and this is where music background and a little bit of sound recording and licensing and copyright law is helpful. But with voicemail, as the recipient of the voicemail, you actually own the sound recording. Okay, you own that recording. Now that doesn't mean you own the underlying composition. For instance, if someone were to sing a song on your voicemail, you don't own the actual words in that song, that composition, but you own the recording. So if you go, it's similar to if you're a band and you go into a record studio and you record a record with them, they own that recording, that actual recording. And you have most certainly as a recipient have the right to publish that for editorial purposes. However, if in that recording you violate some other agreement or some other contract, like confidentiality. So if you and I had a confidentiality agreement in place, you called me and left me a message, said something confidential on my voicemail. I then published it. Now, I definitely certainly still own that sound recording, but I've now violated a different agreement with you. That's not okay. But in most cases, people aren't going to be leaving, breach of confidentiality, or if you go too far and defame someone or something like that, it's pretty minor the likelihood of that occurring. So in short, you can publish it for editorial purposes, which is entertainment value. Okay. Doesn't mean I can go making money off that sound recording, selling it as part of an album necessarily, etc. Back to telephone calls.
But you make money off of ads, though.
We make money off of ads as an outlet. Well, so People Magazine takes pictures of celebrities. They make money off of ads. That's editorial usage. So what Paris Hilton's wearing is considered news.
Unfortunately.
And entertainment. And then they sell ads on that. Paris doesn't get a dime.
Okay.
We are taking a sound recording, publishing it up on our site for news or entertainment purposes, and selling ads on top of it. But they don't, we don't owe royalty to those the creators of that content necessarily.
Okay. So how's a telephone call different? I know that I think it's different by state as well.
Exactly.
But what's the difference there? You have to have permission, right?
Some states you actually don't.
Oh.
Some states
Nevada, you don't.
You can record away now, but it's because of interstate commerce law. It needs to be, the telephone call would have to go on within that state. So for you to be following that state's laws. But if I call someone from Nevada through California, now you're subject to multi-state rules. Okay, in California, both parties must consent to the sound recording. All right, if both parties consent, you can record away. In certain states, it's one party needs to consent to it. So it varies. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I actually haven't memorized the rules for each state. But be careful when you record calls. If Gary gave you permission to publish it at that point, I think you're probably okay to go. But
I mean, he published it on his blog, which is actually probably enough intent. I don't know.
I'd say plenty at that point.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it too.
I wouldn't think.
My thought is, if you're not getting sued, you're not taking chances, and you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
I do have it queued up if you want to play it, by the way.
Sure, let's play it, just because it's interesting.
All right.
Are people uploading telephone calls to you as well, or is it?
They've started to, and Audioo. By the way, this is perfect material for us. So by all means, it should make its way into our ecosystem.
Gotcha.
But we're going to go with all types of voice recordings, including calls and whatnot.
All right, let's cue up the Gary just because it's silly. He was a really good sport about this, actually. Oh, yeah.
Thank you for calling us. And your Tell Suite. Sam, how many direct your phone?
Yes, I need to speak to guest. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk, and I can spell that for you. It's Vaynerchuk.
And what was the first name?
The first name is Gary.
With the G, right?
Yes, please.
1 moment.
Thank you.
Else, he's
Very
called
polite
Gary.
when, yeah, I know. Very polite when I've been drinking.
Hello?
Yes, is this Gary?
This is Gary.
Gary, hello. My name is Tom Crush, and you're destroying my life.
I'm sorry, Tom Crush.
Everyone keeps telling me to crush things. Some man actually physically crushed me.
I'm sorry, buddy.
What should I do?
You should tell them to crush off.
What is crush it, and why does everyone want to do it to me?
I'm not sure why they want to crush you, bro, but Tom Crush is an amazing name to have, bro.
I thought so too. It's almost like a superhero.
I agree.
All right.
All right, bro.
Thank you for your help, Gary.
No problem, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Tell
great.
him to crush off. Oh, that's great.
He was great, and I really put him on. Now, that was at 4 in the morning, by the way, so you noticed he was like, hello, and then it was like, hello. He like jumped up, so I thought that was pretty funny. But actually, that was an experiment for me because I wanted to see in this, South by Southwest, there was so much oversharing going on, and I think it's interesting now that we have all these privacy concerns with Facebook. I was literally able to just go through Foursquare and be like, okay, I know where everyone's staying. It's very easy to call any hotel and get connected to them. And I did that to about 4 or 5 people, and some of the other people weren't so happy. So I edited the clip just to Gary. Let's get back on Audioo. How do you get the voicemails into the system? Can you tell us a little bit of how that works?
Yeah, so today, presently, we have 6 methods for you to get them. The easiest one is if you're a Google Voice user. We have a special Firefox add-on that we've developed. And once you install the Audioo Firefox add-on, you'll start to see simple magic blue buttons that appear in your Google Voice account, and you can one-click submit.
Wow.
You just find a compelling voicemail and click the button.
That's because it's already an MP3 format, and just boom, it goes right there.
Yeah, it basically sucks it out. It also sucks out the transcription.
Oh, cool.
So all that is just delivered to our servers, encoded, and posted in your Audioo account.
Okay.
That's the easiest way. If you're not a Google Voice user, like a lot of others, there are some 5 other ways you can do it. If you have an MP3, because you're a user of like a Umail or a phone tag or another service that delivers MP3 or waves, you can upload them directly. You can also email them in. So you just email them to upload at Audioo. They'll go right into an account, and you'll get a temporary username and password. You can forward them from any handset. So this is where anyone with a cell phone can be a submitter of Audioo. And I want to stress that if you have any type of cell phone, you can submit really easily, which is when you're in your voicemails menu, you'll hear an option to forward. You just push, it's typically number 6. It says, would you like to forward this message? You push number 6, and we have a carrier-specific phone number for you to forward to. And when for AT&T, we have one number, for Verizon, we have one number, et cetera. And you simply forward it to us, and it goes anonymous, okay? So it's not going to be under your name. It won't be. The only thing that'll be posted is the caller's area code, and the recording and a transcription. You get free transcriptions, by the way.
You guys do that. You have a third party that you.
We do phone tag. Our friends at Phone Tag power all of our transcriptions, and they're extremely accurate. They're actually more accurate than Google Voice.
Yeah, I use Google Voice a little bit, and like sometimes I get those voicemail or the text, and it's just like hilarious, especially if it's like, some foreign person calling you about some horrible thing they're trying to sell you, and it's just like so muffled, but it's funny. I know what you're saying that you look at those transcriptions, and it's comical in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I looked at your site, and they looked really accurate. I was wondering if you had people doing this or not. This is all Phone Tag.
Phone Tag. Yeah.
Okay, and Phone Tag, it's a service that manages your voicemail. They do transcription. Like I met the guys once, but I haven't actually used it.
Phone Tag is similar to Google Voice, but better because the transcriptions are more accurate, and you get delivered to your phone the MP3 and wave recordings. Okay. They also now have an API. And through their API, you can access their transcription service. So, for instance, we could upload this episode and get a transcription powered by Phone Tag. You just go in through their API, and it spits back out an output. The reason it's more accurate is because it's powered by both machines and humans. So he has a team that actually corrects some of those issues that the algorithm has in trying to transcode people's mumbles and nuances and things like that.
Audio OCR, basically. Like they do what they can, and then they mark the problem areas and go back and check those out. Okay.
Last couple ways to upload, real quick. You can call our hotline at 4054-Audioo. So if you're feeling like you want to be funny entertainment, or you're just doing a drunk dial, call us. Call 4054-Audioo and leave a message. The last way that you can submit is, give me just a sec.
Sorry, I'm a little slow.
Yeah, bottom right. I'm losing it. Record. Right directly through your computer's mic. So you can play through speakerphone or talk into a mic.
Put my phone up to the mic and just start recording right away. Cool. Sounds like a great feature. There is a question in the chat room. Let's see if we can get this here. I think I know the answer, but Audioo, is it more profitable than Audio Micro?
Not yet.
I'm thinking no.
No.
Okay.
We came out of the gate with some sponsorship from Bill Shrink. We're going to take on some other. We're perfect for the types of phone tags and those types of other services. But no, by all means, it's. I see the question about an exit. We're going to work on that one. First we're going to work on getting users and a lot of funny content, and then ultimately we'll take it from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. And if you look at FormSpring right now, FormSpring's at 50 million unique visitors a month. And when you think about this, it's very light content. There are little questions, little snackable things that people can consume. So I think there's a huge market for this, just like things like Text from Last Night. I think they'll do well. And yeah, I don't know who you sell it to, but there's got to be someone that aligns with their business as well.
Yeah,
and they want some cool factor, and they need your stuff.
Certainly, we've got a much broader long-term vision, which I think is part of the Q&A here, which we can get into, and I can tell you about how this becomes a real business other than just laughing at voicemails.
That's my next question. Then I'm going to kick you out so we can do the news. What's next? What are you guys doing?
Okay, so for Audioo, we ultimately want to build the largest archive of the human voice ever. So that includes speeches, telephone calls, conversations, etc. That data is all transcribed and searchable. So we ultimately want to have a search-based model, which we're all familiar with, and that's actually Twitter's model for how they're going to make money. So once we can aggregate enough content and enough real-time streaming of content, which is something that we're working on with voicemail already. So I mentioned it early on, to be an auto stream, or like a Blippy of auto streaming your voicemail. That is a technology that we're building based upon Asterisk, which will actually scrape your voicemails from your phone automatically, turn them into MP3s, send them in a phone tag, get the transcription, and post them on Audioo. Now you could auto stream all. You could auto stream just the ones from Sean and not the ones from Mike. You could auto stream just the ones from Calacanis and not the ones from Arrington. You could choose which phone numbers got auto streamed, or you could.
You'd want to bring in the Calacanis voicemails. Can your system handle yelling? That's a big question.
It is, and
can it transcribe a yell? No, I'm joking. But anyway. So I mean, wait. Let's stop there though, because that sounds really dangerous. So I'm interested. You would automatically take my voicemails, put them in your system. I wouldn't even touch anything, or I would. Maybe I get the option to approve them before, or I can just let it go.
You could do either or. Like, for instance, you could say, you give us your phone number, your carrier, and your PIN, your voicemail PIN, and the system takes care of the rest. But it could take care of the rest in the sense that it auto-streams them, which could be dangerous, which, again, proceed with caution. Or it could be none of them auto-streamed, and you manually publish.
Okay.
You go in at the end of the day and say, these ones are good, let me just activate them.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. I can't wait to see what you guys do. And thanks so much for taking the time to sit with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Let's go to the news.
All right, so we talked last week about, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, when Twitter announced their promoted tweets.
Yeah.
And this week they rolled out the next stage of their monetization strategy, which is promoted trends. So now they're beginning to allow companies to sponsor trends, basically. And the first to do this is Disney and Pixar. They promoted the Toy Story 3 trend, which I have a screenshot up here of.
Yeah, can you zoom in on that so we can take a look at what we have?
Take a close look at that. So this is kind of interesting. It's just, to me, it doesn't seem like a very big sort of groundbreaking thing, but sort of in addition to what they've been trying out. They sort of talk about this as an experiment, sort of, and their ongoing experiment of monetization. So what do you guys think about this? Do you think this is interesting, or?
I don't think that this particular example is this interesting because it's Toy Story 3 and it's Disney Pixar. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting when it's tacos promoted by Taco Bell. Yeah. Or zombie movies promoted by Lionsgate Horror. I think in this example, it's just such a no-brainer that it's not that interesting. It's when they start taking these broader topics and then specializing it. Like Del Taco's not going to be stoked to see that on Twitter, tacos is being owned by Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's my thought too. It's a little weird because when you're essentially forcing a trend. You're trying to artificially create a trend. I think it'd be more interesting if you leveraged an existing trend. So I don't know, World Cup is trending right now. Like if you had a product like Nike, like how did Nike get in there and then it's relevant, it's topical, and there are ads there as well. This seems kind of weird. It looks too much like an ad. What do you guys think about the placement? It's at the bottom, which normally would be bad, but I think it's okay here. And there's a big yellow thing. Like, did your eye get drawn to it when you saw this thing?
Yeah, a little bit. I think, I mean, from a user perspective, I think it's good that they're not throwing those at the top.
Yeah.
Obviously, advertisers would want the reverse, but yeah, I mean, I think it's subtle enough that it's not coming right at you, but it's not so much. I think it's good middle ground, median. So.
Well, I think it was interesting that in the article there was. Twitter also says that just as with promoted tweets, the promoted trend and topic has to resonate. And that's so vague.
I know.
What resonates? What doesn't resonate on Twitter, you know? Like what doesn't resonate to someone on Twitter?
That's why I bring that point about worrying that they're artificially creating trends. I don't know if Toy Story would have trended. Like I mean, yeah, it's a really good point. Like, how do you determine that something's going really well? And if you look at these promoted tweets, it always says retweeted by 100+ people, but you never know what's beyond 100. Is it 101? Is it 10,000? Is it 1,000,000? You never know. So it's a black bag, but it doesn't surprise me. Google, with their Google AdSense, is such a crazy black bag. Nobody knows about it except a few key folks and people that make a living gaming that system. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting. They're trying to innovate. They're trying to be less boring of an ad, have an ad piece in there. So, more power to them.
Make your money.
Got to make that money.
So another Twitter-related story was Klout. Klout previously had been basically a determiner of influence on Twitter. So they can look at a user, look at their connections, their retweets, all that sort of stuff, and determine their clout or their influence over other people. And this week was their first sort of entree beyond Twitter. They are using Facebook now to determine influence and sort of bring it into that influence formula that they have. You mentioned resonance. Part of what Twitter's trying to do is determine, how influenced someone is or people are, and determining whether something should be brought up to that level to be promoted. So this is interesting that they're now using Facebook. It seems like a logical sort of evolution. What do you guys think about using Facebook now as a determiner of influence?
Yeah, it really makes sense, and I gotta say that if you're building a company exclusively off the back of Twitter, you're gonna probably be in trouble. Something's gonna happen, they're gonna do it themselves, they're gonna push you out. You definitely need to have a more holistic approach where you encompass all the social networks. If you want to include MySpace, please go ahead. But definitely want to do more than just Twitter. So I think it's interesting that they're expanding. I think that it's interesting that people are putting metrics towards this, because I think people always get stuck in the, oh my God, so many followers. Now, is this story related to the celebrities have no influence story that was rolling around?
I just saw that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's directly related, but I've been seeing a lot going around on Twitter about the measure of influence and about people trying to use programs like these to kind of basically say, I am this big, I'm this important, I'm this powerful. It's a little egomaniacal. I understand that that it's tied to business, and coming from a sheer user perspective, I'm not trying to generate income off my Twitter and my Facebook, so I don't need to know how important I am. Still.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this too. It's like, oh great, now companies can measure me more so they can target me with their crappy emails to promote their own stuff. And I mean, I worry about, I think you did your Klout score before the show?
I did my Klout score.
What is your Klout score?
I think that my Klout score was a 46, but what was even more interesting was the astrological style profile that came at the bottom of it that said that I am potentially a social media persona versus, an influencer, and I guess that I might be famous in real life. I don't know how they've aggregated these personality types in relation to the Klout measure.
I know, the ego matrix, as they have it on there. It's always interesting. Will you punch mine up there and see what it's at?
Sure.
I don't think it's much more. I think
should I Klout you?
50. Let's Klout.
So while we're looking at that, I do have the article about the celebrities' influence, the study that was posted this week, basically looking at celebrities' influence compared to other people. And the findings are pretty interesting. Across the board, followers of celebrities have much less influence than some of the other people that you might think might have more, which, Steve Rubel, Chris Brogan. But by its nature, I mean, they're social media people, so you'd think that the people that are following them on Twitter are more engaged. So it seems like a logical conclusion, but. That's
the one thing I do like about Klout is they give you a metric, I think they call it true reach. And so if I have whatever 10,000 followers, my true reach I think is more like 5,000. Essentially what they've done is they've scraped away the brands, the bots, the inactive accounts, because even though those people are following me, we have that connection, obviously that I'll never yield anything out of that. They're not a real person. What is my
I have
clout?
your profile. Your clout is 47, but you're a thought leader in your industry. Your followers rely on you not only to share relevant news, but to give your opinion on the issues. People look to you to help them understand the day's developments. You understand what's important and what your audiences value.
That is very astrological.
Yeah, isn't that and such a different personality from what mine is? Even though I think that presumably we follow a lot of the same people, and maybe you know.
I think I try not to give my opinion as much as possible. I know that probably doesn't sound accurate, but I do like to share a lot of news and weird stuff.
And I just like to tweet about what sandwiches I've eaten. And
well, that's what Twitter's for. So,
yeah,
that's the main use case.
How much I'm in love with social media people.
Do you tweet your bad dates? Your bad
I haven't
dates?
I haven't yet, but once they come out with an Audioo for bad dates specifically, I'll be their #1 user.
Yeah, they should come up with dates from hell, DFH kind of thing, like
I think there is actually
there's got to be something
a
like
web
that.
show
Yeah.
on T180, which is Disney's channel, where they reenact bad dates, where you submit your bad date and then they'll produce them as scripted television, web television.
That's great. Well, congrats to Klout. Go check out Klout, klout.com, and they are calling this bird brain, which is funny.
Yeah, what is it? Was it Twitter had bird pie, which was their embeddable tweets? What's it, the bird?
Yes, bird pie, I believe.
Yeah, bird pie, I think
These
it was.
names are just getting out of control. I can't keep track. What else you got, Mike?
So Bebo.
Oh, what a disaster.
AOL is going to be selling off Bebo for around $10 million. Company was started in 2005, I believe. High hopes, obviously didn't turn out well. They're just kind of spinning it off. What do you guys think about this? Well, why did this fail? What happened?
So there's a few stories going on this, and a few stories are saying like 2 million and 6 million. I don't know. I think it's a classic case of large company buys you, large company stops developing the platform. And as soon as you stop iterating, you're done. And as far as I know, the platform stopped. They just, this is also the other problem too, is you acquire a company and then all the talented people leave because they've got their paycheck and they want to go sit on a beach and do other things. That's just kind of how it goes. But yeah, I mean, this is crazy. I think it's just, they had to be part of this, social media landscape. They paid, what does it say on here, $850 million? I mean, just an insane amount of money. Now, the nice thing for them, though, this is a big write-off, and so they can actually write off a majority of that. But also, it didn't really make sense. Bebo was a UK-centric social network, and I think they thought they could bring it over to the States. But we already had such big, powerful players in MySpace and Facebook. Sort of Facebook at the time, I believe they were still more on the private side, but they were, eventually opening up. I mean, did you guys ever have a Bebo? Did you even use it?
No, never. Never used Bebo.
Yeah, I think AOL was just really confused for a while there. And I think they are making sense of it now, and they understand their direction, and they've hacked and slashed all the things that didn't make sense. Remember, they bought ICQ as well?
Oh, man.
Which is weird because you already had AIM, which is a huge IM platform, and then you bought ICQ, which is more of a legacy IM platform that has kind of gone away, but still has an active user base. So I think what's interesting is Steve Case, who is a former CEO, I believe. He essentially was talking trash on this on Twitter. I don't know if you caught the story. Steve Case is also responsible for the Time Warner AOL merger, which people say is the biggest disaster of all time. I think it was $300 billion. It was an insane price that was involved here, and that actually, the combined, do we have anything on there? Is he responding? I mean, I like the guy because he does get into the mix, and he does share his opinions, and he'll at message back and forth. But there's something happened yesterday where he was talking smack on this, and a few writers picked up on it.
Well, where do social media sites go
when they die?
When they die, where do they go? Where's social
Friendster?
Media heaven?
All social media sites go to heaven? I don't know. It's interesting. I've had this blog post in my head for so long, and I'll get it out eventually. And the title I'm working with is the life cycle of a social network. Because everyone repeats itself.
Yes.
MySpace had the same, not the same, but had privacy issues years ago. All these things it's like history repeating itself. And so I think what happens when they go, they flatten. They just flatline.
Yeah.
I think websites, social media have a life, an adolescence, they have an infancy, an adolescence, maturity, and then they have kind of a death.
Yeah.
And the death in a lot of cases means that they usually go flat, and they kind of maintain that. I wonder, can we look at, let's do some research. Let's look at Friendster. Can we put them into Quantcast?
And I will say, I sort of had a surreal kind of out-of-body experience the other day when I realized that over the rest of our human lives, we will all be constantly moving on to the next social platform. And that as I began at the beginning, you know, LiveJournal and Friendster, small communities, and then we wanted to get bigger, so we jumped to MySpace, you know, and then we wanted to go back to being smaller, so then people went to Facebook, but then we wanted to meet more people, and now we're on Twitter. And so you're seeing these like ups and downs of people wanting to have open and closed communities all at the same time.
So we have Friendster up here. I see a lot of fluctuation there, though.
Compared to?
Yeah, so what are they at? They're roughly, this is about 2 million, so they're probably more about 3 or 4 million accurately. It's interesting, so they haven't gone flat. They bottomed out and now they're kind of having a small decline there. There's a lot of movement going on there in different regional plays that they're doing, so maybe that's affecting it. I don't know, what else? Do we have another dead social network that we can put in there?
Yeah, and what's interesting, I mean, do you think that, here, let me try here.
You can try maybe compete and see what they're at.
So you want to compare Friendster to?
Chat Orchid as well.
Orchid?
I think Orchid's still doing somewhat well, but the problem is Facebook has just dominated these international locations.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of where they were strong, I'm hearing they're not as strong. What are we looking at now? Let's put that on the screen there. We're looking at Orchid. So it's not really flat. There actually is a small pitch there, a little decline. Orchid's on the bottom, right?
Yeah. So Orchid significantly less.
Orchid has less traffic than Friendster. Interesting. Yeah, and there you go. So they flatten out, and I assume at that point is when the engineers start thinking about, okay, how do we kind of dial some knobs and get the most money out of it, and then run it on a skeleton crew.
I just don't know how people keep that many sites juggling all at the same time, along with all of this, you know, with everything new that's coming out, a new profile in every. I can't keep track of my passwords, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging, and you made a good point that, you know, people are always looking to jump. We'll see what happens. I'm assuming that, you know, pretty soon. Oh, I'm getting a cue here that I'm having mic issues. I'm really interested to see what'll happen in probably about 2 years. Twitter won't be the baby. We'll have something new. You know, I would love to see what happens. We're kind of running out of time, but I think, is my audio okay? Can you hear me okay? Check, check, check. Sorry, some technical difficulties. Let's have Mike talk, who has a good mic.
Right.
Do you have any more stories?
We do have one quick one if you want to talk about it. Actually, one that was covered on Lalawag, which you might be familiar with. Plancast, which is basically a site to plan events, plan get-togethers. They released some widgets and new API. So it's kind of the alternative to Facebook if you want to sort of get out of their community. And Facebook did add features where you wouldn't have to be a member of Facebook to join events and plan things. But Plancast is a great service, announcing some new features. I know on Lalawag you guys have actually a Plancast widget on the bottom sidebar, I believe.
No, I haven't put it on there yet. And are you guys Plancast users? Do either of you use it? I know.
I don't personally use it. I mean, I've been invited to a couple things, so I have very casual use with it. But
yeah, I mean, we use it. I like it because it's a very lightweight event system. And essentially the news here is they have an API, so it can be a little bit more extendable. It's a former TechCrunch alumni that kind of started the site. He's a funny guy, and he did really well with this. I think it's been well received. I remember when they did their funding round, it was like a feeding frenzy. It was like blood in the water, sharks. Friends were calling me because I know the guy that founded it. You know, it's not like we're best friends hanging out all the time, but like all these investors were trying to get a hold of me to get to him. And it was really interesting, you know. And so I think they've done well, and they're just continuing to iterate the platform and make it a little bit more extendable now. So good for them. I think that is it for news, and we're kind of starting to run out on time. Let's thank our sponsor one more time, PickClick. That's pickclick.com. You can find them on Twitter as well. If you haven't already, please do me a favor and thank the sponsors. Like I said, they pay for the jet and Mike's various drug habits.
Yeah, of course.
Please join us again next week for another episode of This Week in Social Media. Thank you.